Hello and welcome back to the top 10 medieval MOCs of the month. Today we're going to be rounding off 2024 by taking a look at some beautiful MOCs made by you this past December. Starting first with an orc fortress by Clarence. Peter has constructed a lovely little section of a crumbling castle wall. I think it's quite fitting for the orcs, and I've said it before but I'll say it again, I love a simple and small scene just like this one. It's got just enough detail going on without looking messy, and I love all the minifigure staging that he's done here. The look of this barbarian warrior is probably my favorite of the bunch. The pose just feels very dynamic, if that makes any sense, and I really like how it looks. The orcs, don't get me wrong, are also nice, but the barbarian's my favorite. Anyways, thank you so much for entering, Peter, and I'll be leaving a link to your website in the description of this video, along with the links to all of the other artists featured today. Next, we've got a couple of D&D minifigure habitats by Paul. I'm a sucker for any miniature scenes like these ones, so I had to include them in this video. Each habitat has its own distinct feel, and they really don't feel repetitive, like in the slightest. They all have their own vibe going on, but if I had to pick my favorite scene, it would definitely be the city vignette with a bard and a couple of goats strolling by. It's got a nice contrast to it with the bright minifigure and the tree, to go against the grays of the city that he's busking on. It's just seriously a lovely little habitat, and I'd highly recommend trying to make some of your own if you're wanting to practice any MOC building techniques. And next, we've got a Wolfpack tower and tavern by Thorthebrickbuilder. I would describe this build as almost neoclassic, like, hear me out. It feels like a classic Lego castle set from, say, the 80s, but with some more modern pieces in it. Anyways, I like the tower, but honestly, I think the tavern next to it actually has a lot more going for it. The patio outside looks lovely, and it even has some of those stickered wooden planks that just add in a nice bit of detail for the peasants to drink by. And the same is true for the interiors that have a lovely little setup in here with a keg in the back. And the bottom floor also has a place for the tavern owner to sleep, or maybe even the patrons, I don't know. Either way, this build is a really fun one, and it's nice to see some more MOCs for the Wolfpack showing up. Again, go check out Thor's other work linked below. Next up, we've got a MOC by legofrogproductions. This is the Hoffen Fish Weerbersol. I definitely got that wrong, but Google Translate says that it means harbor fish spine. I'm sure there's some context lost in that translation, but I think we all know what this is. It's a harbor, and the build is really interesting to me. He's done a harbor scene above, and below is an underwater world. This is a kind of common trope when it comes to Lego MOCs, but I'm a sucker for it. I think it looks really nice just about every time. There's some treasure buried under the sand down here, and a ton of other really cool details, like this hammerhead shark that's getting reeled in. I absolutely love builds like this one, and I think I actually prefer the underwater section, to be honest with you. But the harbor section isn't bad by any means. I personally love all the character details that he's included. My favorite of them being these two guards that have caught a thief. The minifigure expressions and posing is just really realistic, and I love what he's done here. They've put a ton of thought and love into the character moments, and you should really check out the post on LEGO Ideas after this video. It's even got a Cyclops fishing vessel that looks super cool. And next we've got what can only be described as a monster of a castle. This is the Altberg Castle by Malt Rug. Now, I try not to include too many digital MOCs in this series, but this one had to make the cut. The scale is downright ridiculous, and it means that they were able to fit in a ton of details into every part of this build. The castle walls are extremely realistic looking, especially at this wide, faraway angle. The build is almost overwhelming to look at, to be honest with you. There's just so much going on, but not in a bad way. I really love what he's done here. He's actually made a highly detailed post about it on the LEGO Castle Discord, so I'll leave a link to that in the description. After you join the server, you can just search for Altberg Castle and find it pretty easily. Next, we have a medieval winter layout by Tanner. Now, unfortunately, he sent in some pretty low quality images, but I wanted to include it, especially because of the winter scenery. It just felt right. The crown jewel of this build is the church, in my opinion. He's done a great job with it. But the other builds are also super well done, and they feel so much like a winter village that you'd see in your grandparents' house. I love how this looks, but I wish I could see it in some higher quality images. He has also included a couple of play features actually that I thought were really well done. The ringing of the church bell is probably my favorite though. I don't even know how he did this. Tanner, if you do see this video, I would love for you to send in some higher quality images of the MOC, because I really want to include it in the best of 2024 video. But if you can't, I completely understand. You made a beautiful MOC either way, so thank you for sharing it. Next, we have a Lord of the Rings Elephant MOC by Psionicus Rex. He has set up an awesome battle terrain with some riders of Rohan going up against the Oliphants. The minifigure and Oliphant posing is lovely, and I think they turned out looking very realistic. It makes me want to finally watch that animated Rohan movie that came out back in December. It's a really cool battle scene, and I think you should really check out his other posts on Instagram linked below. There are a ton of Lord of the Rings and other medieval stuff that I think you'd like. Next, we've got a medieval market square by Weird Ice Lego. I love a medieval market, so this one was right up my alley. All of the different vendors and people running around are full of character, and while the stalls are pretty similar to each other, they have enough color differences and the wares are different to make it feel fresh every time. The unique angles of the stalls also help a ton and make this build just feel a lot more interesting than the basic market that you've seen before. Anyways, I'm a huge fan of how this turned out, and I can't wait to see what you make next. You can check out all of his other work on Instagram linked below. And next we have a Wolfpack Cavern camp by the Brickstars. Right off the bat, I gotta say I love the minifigures that they came up with. The faces are just about as good as it gets for the Wolfpack, and the Screaming Lion Knight also makes a ton of sense for this build. As for the actual MOC, I think it is a perfect reimagining of that small Wolfpack set from the 90s. This is much larger, of course, but I think it's exactly what the kids back then kind of imagined their Wolfpack living in. The cavern section is simple, but I think it looks really great with all of the trees and fortifications around it. The dark and sand green leaves make the forest feel properly spooky, and the wolf's head on top of the tower looks very menacing. This is just a fantastic little scene, and I would highly recommend you go check out their video where they do a much deeper dive into the MOC linked below. And finally, we have the City of Anbri by Fearoth Realms. I don't know why, but I feel like I've seen progress pics of this build online before, but anyways, I love this scene. It's got a ton of details in the terrain and the walls, but it doesn't go overboard in style. I think they found a great balance between sets like the Lion Knight's Castle and a more realistic MOC look. The front gatehouse entrance section of the build is probably my favorite part, but honestly, it all looks fantastic, and the minifigure posing may even be better. The witch sitting on top of this boulder is a really fun look, and I will definitely be stealing this for my own stuff in the future. Again, go check out Fearoth Realms on Instagram, where they have a bunch of other highly detailed MOCs that I know you will love. And that's the list. Unfortunately, I won't be doing any honorable mentions this month, as I'm saving them for the big Best of 2024 MOC video that should hopefully be coming by the end of January. Go check out all the artists linked below, and as always, thank you so much for watching.